So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give it 1 minute here to let people kind of log in. Hello on YouTube. I'm making sure this is all working on YouTube. And while we're waiting for YouTube to kind of kick in, we'll go ahead and share our screen. Okay. Welcome once again, everyone, to our Tuesday Talks. And I'm really delighted because I went to a women's college, so I love being able to share about that experience and to hear about it and talk about the benefits of it. And so really, really glad to have these wonderful panelists who've agreed to take time out of their busy schedule as they're getting ready to read applications to talk about women's colleges. And so before we kind of dive in, I just want to remind people, nuts and bolts Q&A box. Please go ahead and ask questions there. As soon as you have them, we might cover them in the presentation, or we might not. And so we'll want to consolidate as quickly as we can to make sure we cover as many questions as we can. Those of you on YouTube, you are welcome to ask questions there as well. I'll be monitoring. But without further ado, I'd love for my panelists to go ahead and introduce themselves.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our program. My name's Meredith McDill, and I'm an Assistant Director of Admission at Smith College. First and foremost, of course, we hope you, your family, and friends are all staying healthy and doing well in the midst of these challenging and unprecedented times. We certainly wish we could be with you in person, but we thank you so much for joining us tonight virtually. And we want to be sure to thank our hosts at Initial View for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. And now I'd like to ask my colleagues joining me on the panel to introduce themselves, please.
I'll start. I'm Jennifer Fondiller, and I'm the Vice President for Enrollment at Barnard College.
And I'm Jennifer Russell, and I'm Associate Director of Admission from Bryn Mawr College.
Hi everyone, I'm Annie Sullivan. I'm an Associate Director of International Admission at Mount Holyoke College.
Okay, so, our institutions travel and present together both physically in non-COVID times and now virtually. To speak not only about our individual institutions, but to give an overview of women's colleges in general. So tonight we're going to do a little of both while leaving plenty of time for your questions at the end of the program. We all do a lot of speaking about both liberal arts colleges and women's colleges all around the world, often in cultures where there's not a lot of familiarity with either. So I always like to start with a little history. Women's colleges were founded during the mid and late 19th century here in the US in response to a need for advanced education for women at a time when they were not admitted to most institutions of higher education. From a high of 300 or so women's colleges before the widespread coeducational movement, there are now just under 40 women's colleges remaining in the US. Independent nonprofit women's colleges, which included the Seven Sisters, the name which was originally given to Barnard, Smith, Mount Holyoke, Bryn Mawr, Wellesley, and also Vassar and Radcliffe, because of our parallel to the Ivy League men's colleges, and other similar institutions largely located in the northeastern United States, were founded to provide educational opportunities to women equal to those available to men, and were geared toward women who wanted to study the liberal arts. So one of the first most important factors to note about women's colleges in the US is that we're all pretty much universally small liberal arts colleges. Then during the 1960s and 1970s, due to social and legislative changes, several institutions of higher ed that had previously been all male started opening their doors to women. And many women's colleges either became coeducational themselves, merged with all male or coeducational institutions, or closed due to declining enrollment and financial problems related to the increased competition in higher education. As a result, the number of women's colleges shrank. And of the Seven Sisters colleges I spoke of earlier, Vassar became co-ed while Radcliffe was absorbed by Harvard. However, our group still commonly is referred to as the Seven Sisters, even though we're now 5, or the Sisters for short. So some women's colleges during that widespread coeducational movement in the 60s and 70s, like the Sisters, reaffirmed our missions, believing that it was important to continue to offer an all-female educational environment for women. Women's colleges have had a formative role in shaping the history of women's education and in the advancement of women, both in the United States and the larger world. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. Thank you. We hear from students across the world, that one, thank you. We often hear from students, especially in cultures where there are many girls' high schools, that there's often a reluctance to consider women's colleges because students who have attended girls' high schools think their experience at a women's college will be the same or similar. We're here to help debunk a lot of myths this evening, but this is one we wanted to address right from the start, because one thing you have to realize is that a women's college in the US will be very different from a girls' high school anywhere, partly because of the partnerships we all have with co-ed institutions, which you see here. So as you see, we all have partnerships and/or are part of college consortia, whereby students from other institutions, both male and female, take classes and participate in all sorts of other activities on our campuses, and our students are able to do the same at co-ed schools. So you absolutely must not think of a women's college as a place where you're somehow going to be cloistered away with all women all the time. And you know, when I host students, families, college counselors from around the world coming to Smith for the first time, knowing we're the largest of the women's colleges, they're often very surprised at all the gender diversity they see on campus, partly because of our membership in the 5-college consortium. So now that we've gotten that myth out of the way, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Jen to present our next slides.
All right. So we think that maybe you have heard some things about women's colleges, and just for a moment wondered if you all, through the chat function, might share what you've heard about women's colleges. Anything that you've heard, people have told you, friends, parents, perceptions out there? Well, we've heard some things, and we wanted to broach some of those things kind of emphasis on leadership. Okay, yes, I see something popped up in the chat. So yes, we wanted to broach some of these myths and truths about women's colleges, things that you may have heard. The first one being that women's college students are staunch feminists. And to that I say yes and no. Yes, being that absolutely, we're all about feminism, but no in the sense that our students don't walk around thinking about their gender all day. They don't have to. And that's what's really liberating about women's colleges in a way that I think maybe people think is different. We've also heard that women's college students are mostly LGBTQ. And to that I say yes, no, maybe, and we don't know. That's not a demographic that we necessarily calculate. But what you will find on women's college campuses is a wide array of gender diversity. You will find that students are really comfortable in their own skin, that students are really welcoming of each other, and that certainly does mean LGBTQ students, as well as our cisgender students. We've heard from time to time that women's colleges are very elite and lack diversity. And that, I think you'd be surprised. When we each talk a little bit about our own institutions, I think you'll be surprised to hear the percentage of international students, the percentage of American students of color, the percentage of students on financial aid. So it's a pretty wide array of students that you'll find at women's colleges, and we're very proud of that. And then one other thing that we've heard, that women's college grads are not prepared for the real world. And to that, I say, have you met a women's college graduate? They are absolutely prepared for the real world. There are so many opportunities for women at women's colleges. It's not equal opportunity, it's every opportunity. And those things prepare you for the real world. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, but wanted to sort of put some of those things out there that maybe you've heard, some myths, some truths, some in between, but a couple things to think about as we go on. Thank you.
Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. So I am delighted to be able to speak with you this evening. And, you know, we've put up a slide here about the liberal arts, and it's something that you can read through. But what I really wanted to talk to you more about, sort of at the heart, liberal arts education is about teaching you how to learn, not just particular subject areas, but really how to learn in general, but then also how to apply what you've learned. And I wanted to highlight a little bit with my time how our colleges are focusing on gaining practical skills while at a liberal arts college and sort of that practical experience. So let's talk a little bit about internships and research that our students are doing. Internships are something that come in all shapes and sizes and are something that many colleges do offer, and particularly liberal arts colleges. They can help students learn about career fields, about clarifying goals that you have, or if you're not sure of your goals. And they can also help you with connections, with contacts, with mentors. And sometimes that even leads to a full-time job later. So really important that we're talking about this. At Barnard, our location in New York provides a very distinct advantage for students looking to intern during the academic year because of our proximity in New York City to a huge supply of corporate and nonprofit and governmental organizations, many other things. But frankly, all of our schools here make practical experience a key part of your experience at our colleges. And so I just wanted to share a few examples of what our students at all of our schools have been doing for their different kinds of internships. And I like to call this part a little bit of like, imagine yourself, right? To dream a little bit of, you could be doing these things. So the first one I'll talk about is students from Wellesley who take advantage of a program that they have in their career education area, Global Citizenship Program. Two students who lived in Morocco and they interned at a foundation that was part of the Yves Saint Laurent Museum. So that was a very interesting internship. Barnard students have interned at places like Amazon and Google, the United Nations, an organization called Girls Who Code. We had one student named Pilar, who's an international student from Brazil, who interned at Sony Music because she's always had this interest in entertainment law. And sure enough, she is now in her first year studying entertainment law at New York University. Our schools offer many science research internships right on campus, and for some opportunities to student teach. Bryn Mawr offers a very interesting internship program called Lagim Tehi Tuma, which stands for Thinking Together. And it's a program that is a summer action research fellowship in Ghana, focusing on reimagining education through community-based partnerships and collaborative study. Fascinating. At Holyoke, I wanted to mention a student who graduated a few years ago. Her name was Mai Lin Nguyen, and she has gone on to medical school, but didn't know that she always wanted to pursue a medical degree. And so she interned in the Office for Science and Technology at the French Embassy in Washington, DC. And she did that over the summer to combine two interests that she had, French and chemistry. And so that is a huge ability to do that within the liberal arts, that you have multiple interests and can try different things. Smith College had a student who interned recently at something called Cold Squad Productions. It was in Vancouver, Canada. And she said of her experience, I wanted a job knowing almost nothing about the TV business, but just that I wanted to be in it. I wanted to know script formats, lighting techniques, how filming was done, the value of editors. Not something that I'm learning in the classroom per se, but was able to learn through this internship. And Smith is a great example of providing funding for students participating in potentially unpaid internships. And they call it something called Praxis. And it's something every student can take advantage of in fields like healthcare and government and education and research and technology. Our colleges encourage students to explore across the curriculum. And you will pick a major, but you will also be broad. Internships, we feel, within the liberal arts prepare our students go on to any career. They become doctors and lawyers and research scientists. They go into business and finance, and they work at museums and just many, many more things. So I just wanted to be able to share that with you. Thank you. And now I think we are going on to our next slide, which it will be about introducing our colleges. So I will start with Barnard. At Barnard, we have about 2,700 students. So it is probably a little bit larger of the smaller liberal arts colleges and of our colleges here tonight. We are about 11% of our students are international and coming from around, I think last year it was about 57 different countries. So quite diverse geographically. We are, in addition to our being a small college, we also have a small campus, but we are in the middle of New York City. And it's great when you look at a map of New York City to sort of figure out where Barnard is. And you'd think when I picture New York City, I always picture the middle of New York City where it's a lot of skyscrapers. But in fact, we have a campus and it's a gated campus, and probably about 90% of our students are living on campus. So it is very much a residential campus. Class sizes, about 75% of our classes have less than 20 students. So you really do get a very personal feel at Barnard. And we do follow something called a foundations curriculum, which you can look up on our website. And within that curriculum, we were one of the first colleges to build in a technology component to our curriculum. And every student has to take a course around thinking technologically and digitally. So quite interesting. We are also home to a number of innovative academic centers, which our students take part in. They include an Athena Center for Leadership Studies, a Center for Research on Women, a Center for Toddler Development. And so we have toddlers that come onto our campus for early childhood development. We have a Digital Humanities Center and a Design Center and a Movement Lab. So lots of areas where students beyond just their classroom can really get a little bit more in depth in particular subject areas. And then I also just wanted to mention this longstanding partnership that we've had with Columbia University. Students can cross-register for classes with Columbia. We run some departments that Columbia doesn't have, and they run some departments that we don't have. We're literally right across the street, so students are back and forth at Columbia 5 times a day sometimes. And we share our libraries and our gym and our dining plans. So while you get this very small college on the Barnard side of the street, our students also have access to Columbia. And finally, I will just say that living and learning in New York City is a huge draw for our students, for the cultural access to great museums and internships, and just a pace that our students love. At the end of the day, wherever our students are, at the end of the day, I feel like they walk back through the gates to the Barnard campus. And as I always say, they feel like they're at home on our campus. So I will stop there. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So we're going in alphabetical order. So Bryn Mawr College is next. Bryn Mawr, we are just outside the city of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, as you probably know, is right in between Washington, D.C. and New York, about 2.5 hours from each one. So a lot going on in that immediate area. But we're not in the city, but we're near the city. We're in a beautiful residential campus that was designed by Olmsted, who designed Central Park in New York City. So beautiful campus. We are the smallest of the 7 sisters. We've got about 1,300 undergraduates, but we tout a large number of international students. About 22% of our students are international, coming from all over the world. And a couple, I guess, unique things about Bryn Mawr to highlight, maybe distinct from the other sisters, in addition to our size, is our partnership with Haverford College, Swarthmore College, and the University of Pennsylvania. That's our consortium. Haverford is 5 minutes away. And what's a little unique is that students can take anything they want at Haverford and vice versa. Even if we have the course, you still can take it at Haverford. Why would you do that? Maybe it's scheduling. Maybe you don't want to get up early in the morning. Maybe you like the faculty member better. Maybe your friend is in the class. It could be any number of things. It's that academically seamless between Bryn Mawr and Haverford. You can even major at Haverford, and Haverford students can major at Bryn Mawr. All of that being said, we have very different personalities. Sort of the identity is very different. Bryn Mawr is very proud of its identity as a women's college, and you really feel that being on campus. Our students are really diverse in not only sort of who they are, but also what they're studying. About a third of our students major in math or science, which is almost 3 times the national average for women. And so we're a fantastic place to be if you're a woman in STEM. I also wanted to highlight, I guess, a little bit about sort of our residential community and sort of what it feels like to be on campus. Because as you go through the college search, those are things that you really want to know a little bit more about. So Bryn Mawr, all of our dorms are mixed. We don't have any freshman dorms. Students are living in all the residence halls mixed, and almost all of our students live on campus. Housing is guaranteed for 4 years. And it's beautiful. Check it out on some pictures. We have very strong traditions that really bring the student body together, even though they're from very different places. So these traditions are celebrations and ceremonies and different things that happen during the course of the year, especially to really welcome the first year students. Some of these things are silly, some are serious, some are secret, but every alum will talk about these things literally for the rest of her life. So those are just a couple things, I guess, that I wanted to highlight about Bryn Mawr to distinguish us from our other sisters. And why don't we hear from Mount Holyoke? Yes, next. All right, take it away, Annie.
Hi, everyone. So Mount Holyoke is located in the northeastern part of the United States, like my fellow sister schools here, and we're in the state of Massachusetts, in a really beautiful and safe part of Massachusetts. It's about an hour and a half to take a bus from our campus to the city of Boston, and about 3 hours from New York City. We have over 50 different majors. Some of the most popular ones are computer science, psychology, economics, neuroscience, English, and international relations, with the majority of our classes having 20 or fewer students in them. We're a very global campus. 27% of our students are coming from outside of the US. And then in addition to having a really international student body, our faculty also have very global perspectives as well. Over 2/3 of them speak another language in addition to English, and over 3/4 of them have lived outside of the United States themselves. Instead of doing a little bit more of a general overview, I just kind of want to talk about 2 things at Mount Holyoke, I guess, of the many things that each of our schools offer. First is our Makerspace and Innovation Lab. It's a really cool part of our community that's open to everyone. Some students use it academically for studying, for building, and for learning computer science and architectural studies. Other students come and laser print birthday cards for their friends, or they might 3D print chocolates for gifts, or sewing pillows, or making door decorations, or just sewing a tear in their jeans. So you can use it for work, for play, or for helping you get things done that you need to get done too. We also do a lot to help balance rigorous academics with well-being. We offer meditation classes, Tai Chi, yoga. One of our traditions is a milk and cookies break every weeknight of the year. And we also have an event around finals each year called No Study Zone for stress relief during one of the most stressful times of a student's academic year. students might come and work with faculty and staff on making a pair of earrings for themselves. Maybe they will go to our puppy corner, which would be like where you would find me during the full event, and pet dogs and puppies and hang out there. And you might go have a breakfast at midnight kind of a thing as well. So we offer a lot of different ways to make sure that you're having some balance in your academic life and in your social life, personal life, and well-being as well. So I'll just end by saying that Mount Holyoke has been SAT, ACT optional for about 20 years now, and obviously will continue to be through this time as well. We also do offer both merit-based and need-based scholarships for international students as well. So passing it along to Meredith.
So Smith College, at Smith, we've got about 2,750 students, 14% of whom are citizens of countries outside the US. And of our US students, about a third identify as US students of color. We are in the western part of the state of Massachusetts, in a town called Northampton, Massachusetts. You see the map and our town on the picture here. And with Mount Holyoke, Smith is part of the largest and most widely utilized college consortium in the country, the 5-college consortium, where you have Amherst, Mount Holyoke, Smith, Hampshire colleges, and the University of Massachusetts. At Amherst, all 5 schools are within a 20-kilometer, 12-mile radius of one another, and we're connected by the largest free bus system in the country. So students at any of those colleges, both young men and young women, can choose to take up to half of all of their classes or join clubs and organizations, go to concerts, lectures, sports events, and parties on the other campuses. So it's a very lively community within the 5-college consortium. Smith is the only women's college and one of only a handful, say about 7 colleges in all of the United States that offers what's called the open curriculum, which is essentially the most flexible course of study you could have available to you, because rather than a core curriculum or what are called general education or area distribution requirements outside of the on average 10 to 14 classes that you must take to fulfill the requirements of your major at Smith, the remainder of your courses can be in absolutely anything you'd like to study. So this means a very large percentage of our students double major. We're also the only women's college with our own fully accredited engineering program. And currently at Smith, about 40% of our students are majoring in STEM. We're an excellent liberal arts college. We've got about 50 different majors and 40 different minors. Our most popular major for international students is economics. Art is our largest department. As an art major, you can major in studio art, art history, or architecture. But I do always highlight our strength in STEM because, I think it speaks so well to what women's college's mission has, always been to really propel women into leadership roles, especially in those traditionally male-dominated fields like STEM. We've got a really unique living and dining situation at Smith. Rather than traditional dormitories, our students live in 37 different self-governing houses spread out around our campus. The smallest has only 10 students. The largest has 100. These really create a smaller community within the Smith community. And I think our students really feel like they're living with a family in their houses. And we're also very well known for our food. 14 of these houses have dining halls in them. The 15th is in our campus or student center. So we really feel like at Smith, we offer the best of a lot of different worlds. We're a small residential liberal arts college. You've got the smaller community that the housing system provides, the larger community within the 5-college consortium. And if you need a big city fix, we're under 2 hours from Boston and about 3 from New York City. Thank you.
All right, back to me. So what does all of this mean? We just talked about a lot of the benefits of a women's college, and now we want to share a little bit about what that leads to. And so one of the things that happens during your 4 years at a women's college is that you really start to break down both overt and subtle barriers that tend to limit women's perceptions of what's possible for them. And so as options open up and mentors help facilitate opportunities, students at women's colleges experience personal and professional growth, and our graduates exhibit confidence and boldness to pursue their goals. So much of this growth and self-awareness occurs inside of the classroom, but many students find that their involvement in activities and leadership on campus are equally valuable. Since all of the campus organizations are run by women, our students get to experience top-level leadership positions that aren't always realistic opportunities for women at coeducational institutions. There's a lot of co-ed environments where the research shows that women often opt out of those leadership positions, but on our colleges, they develop the habit of stepping forward and pursuing those positions of responsibility. These habits is one of the reasons that they're disproportionately represented among women who hold the highest positions in finance, in government, and STEM, and that have historically excluded women from the top. The presence of women as role models, especially sisters graduates, is another factor that helps our students envision the future that they want. Graduates from women's colleges are remarkably loyal to their institutions and to one another. And so there's a camaraderie that comes from making this unconventional choice of attending a women's college. And as a result, women's college graduates have something that is in common and that is much deeper than graduate at coeducational institutions. So I wanted to share a couple examples of recent Mount Holyoke graduates and what they're doing. All of these are students who have worked for me, and so I've gotten to see them grow over a few years of working for me in my office. But I have student Zoe Zhao, who is from Shanghai, and she's in her second year of her Master of Finance at Columbia. One of my students, Nikki Wei, is doing an internship that she did during her time at Mount Holyoke in a dental office while she applies for dental school afterward. One of my students from India, her name is Tanishka, and she's doing environmental research in Israel right now. And then lastly, we have actually a pair of students from Morocco who have gone on to Princeton, and they are studying Francophone studies and receiving earning their PhDs there. So you can see students are really going in a lot of different directions with their educations at women's colleges, and really have not been afraid to pursue research and finance and medicine in ways that they may or may not have done at coeducational institutions. So I think Meredith is coming up next to round us out and talk a little bit more about
Let's go to the next slide, and we can leave it here for a moment so you can absorb it. This is really a cheat sheet so that we hope you'll find helpful, outlining our application deadlines, our testing requirements, interview opportunities, and financial aid policies. So we want to get to your questions in a moment, but in conclusion, in surveying what is now about 170-year history of women's colleges, one cannot help but be struck by the continuity of the tradition and its power to engender a palpable coming to selfhood among our students. The experience of being part of this alternative sphere of unlimited female possibility really binds graduates across the generations into an affirming sisterhood. I think we could go a couple of slides, and we can come back to this one if we need to, but we could advance a couple of slides. We really think that, despite our small size and our fewer numbers, the historic sisters and the many institutions that have been founded in our likeness, both in the US and across the world, have had a tremendous effect, propelling women forward as change agents in the larger world that sometimes devalues them. So now more than ever, we firmly believe the world needs women's colleges. We hope you'll agree. And I just, wanted to say that as we head into the question and answer period, please feel free to visit our websites and write us with any questions you may have that are specific to our own institutions. And Gloria, I will turn it over to you to see if we have general questions you'd like us to address.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. I always love hearing about other successful women that have come out of women's colleges, because I just have fond memories of my time at a women's college as well. And, I had traveled across the US to go to a women's college. And I know my mom had a lot of anxiety about that. And now I am a mom, so I also have anxiety about that. So my first question, when is related to, you know, what are kind of the student supports that are available when it comes to questions of safety, you know, for international mothers out there who are anxious about their daughters leaving and going across the world.
I mean, I'll jump in and start a little bit, and others can add. You know, so I'm a mother of two daughters who have gone off both to women's colleges, and I think that I will first say, I think that when our students get to our campuses, we don't sort of we start off with really robust orientation programs to really help our students understand the neighborhoods that they're living in, what the campuses are like. And we all have really strong public safety offices and programs to help students understand what public safety is there for. You know, everything from, you know, if you find yourself in a situation like the number, you know, number that you might call, that we might have call boxes on campus, right? That you can seek out some help. And then also just supports in terms of our being small, so that it's not a very bureaucratic place, that it's very easy to be able to talk to somebody in our dean's office or in the advising office, or our health and wellness centers have really, really robust counseling services, just very, very accessible to our students. But, you know, I think that when they first get there, we don't make an assumption that people know that. So we sort of throw a lot of information at students very, very early on, and, you know, keep reminding students throughout their time.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have anything to add to that? Jen,
just add for Smith and Mount Holyoke, Meredith mentioned the bus system before as well, between the 5 college campuses. And I think that's a big part of safety as well, because that bus system on weekends runs until 2 in the morning, and on weekdays it often it starts at 6:30 or 7 in the morning. So what's important about that is that we don't just give you this 5 college consortium resource and let you on your own to figure out how you're going to get around and do so safely. We do provide opportunities in a place for students to get home safe when they've been on another college campus for the afternoon or for the evening. So, and that's emblematic, I think, of all of our institutions, is that we don't just kind of throw resources out there. We also want to make sure that you have ways to utilize them safely as well.
Wonderful, thank you. Well, I think we don't have a lot of questions right now, unless somebody else wants to kind of last minute type something in. But what I really wanted to do is encourage all of you to once again visit the websites of these institutions, because each of these institutions does want to engage with you and answer institutionally specific questions and have other opportunities for engagement. So as we always say at Tuesday Talks, it's really important for you to do your research, which means like it's great to have these nice broad topics, but it's also great to kind of drill down deep. And I think sometimes we're afraid that there's not a person on the other side, but now you see that there's an actual person on the other side. So thank you once again to all of you for joining me, for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this talk. And for everybody who's on, thank you for taking time. We've really enjoyed our Tuesdays with you. We look forward to Tuesday Talks next year in 2021. And maybe we'll all be in a better place to be able to travel as well. And it'll be good to see each other in person. But thank you once again for this time, and have a really good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.